It's time for Robot Cantina. Ah! Let me go!
Welcome back to Robot Cantina. Today we're going back to the Hillbilly Proving Grounds to validate our bargain Speeduino EFI system. We're going to put some digital gravy on today's hijinks as we analyze the performance of our lawnmower-powered Honda. So this might be a good reason to get out of bed, and you can take your nap later. Right now we got work to do. So in the last episode, we were able to finish the installation of the Speeduino NO2C EFI on our 420cc cement mixer powered street legal go-kart. Hang on, my bad. It's a fuel-injected, air-cooled 420cc Hemi Big Block cement mixer powered street legal go-kart. Anyway, after a bit of troubleshooting, we were able to get the car running, and it ran pretty good. But due to a problem with the laptop computer, we weren't able to take the car for its first test ride, and that sucked. This janky Acer laptop has seen better days, and keep in mind I'm not one to give up easily. I did everything I could to get this laptop to work, and that includes new cables, short cables, long cables, ferrite bead cables, powered USB hub, I modified the buffers, I double-checked the driver, I modified the tuner studio settings, I changed the Arduinos, and it still wouldn't stay connected. Anyway, its days are done. The good news is, the new used laptop finally arrived, and the better news is, it works perfectly with zero issues so far.
Damn it, he got another computer.
Now, as a bonus, this one has a lot more horsepower and a bigger screen. Not too shabby for $130. Well, enough talk. I guess now would be a good time to road test the car, so let's head over to the Hillbilly Proving Grounds in rural Michigan. Before we get started, let's take a look at some of the improvements and some areas of concern. So a lot of folks commented that the tiny air filter that I was using could rob the engine of performance, and with that in mind I rigged up a new air filtration system that should provide a less restrictive path for the air, and with the hood installed it should provide some cool air to the engine. Now the other thing of concern is the rubber fuel tank mounts. Well, so far so good. I think at this point the tank has seen about 45 trouble-free miles and is holding up just fine. So if you're new to the channel, here's what we're trying for fuel tank mounts. Now previously we had rigid mounts and we were experiencing stress cracks as well as failures to the mounting brackets. So this should be interesting. I reckon I'm about done talking and we should see how this car performs. And the first thing we're going to do is the drag strip portion of the Hillbilly Proving Grounds. You guys ready? Alright, let's go! Well, this is awkward. The speedometer didn't exactly hit 30, instead we got 31, and that took 10.96 seconds. I guess you can argue in the comment section, but I'm going to say it took around 10 seconds for the 0 to 30. And that's about 1 second quicker than the carburetor, but it's exactly the same time as the cheapo eBay fuel injection system we were previously using. But keep in mind, this is the first outing and the EFI still needs to be tuned. Also, since day one, we've always done the drag strip run starting off in third gear, and that might not make a lot of sense to some folks, especially given the fact that the engine only makes 15 horsepower at best. Well, it's been discussed in previous episodes, but the transmission we're using is the original Insight 5-speed, but the clutch we're using is a go-kart type torque converter clutch, which is more or less a CVT, or continuously variable transmission. So basically we have two transmissions, and taking off in third gear provides an ideal ratio for the CVT to start off in. Anyway, we'll get back to that in a minute. Let's continue the acceleration run and see how long it takes for this thing to get to 50 miles per hour. Well, there you go, 33.94 seconds, which is slow, but keep in mind we're moving a 1,400-pound car with a 15-horsepower cement mixer engine, so it could be worse. Okay, today we have bonus footage, and we're going to watch the drag strip run again, but from a different perspective. Well, that was pretty cool. No doubt that little engine really tried its best. Okay, well let's do something different and take a look at the data log file. One of the bonus features of EFI is the ability to record the engine sensors, and we can use this data to help tune the engine for better performance. Alright, so what we're looking at is 3 sensors. The RPM is white, the map is red, and the throttle position is green. Right now we want to focus on the white, which is the RPM, and green, which is the throttle position signal. So the engine's idling right now, and I'm getting ready to floor the accelerator. Okay, right here's our first problem. You see the green line is the throttle position, and when I floored the accelerator, the engine started to accelerate and then fell flat on its face. So I had to let off on the accelerator for a moment and then floor it again, and that's this big dip here. Well, that hurt our 0 to 30 time a little bit, but it's an easy fix. And the fix is in the accelerator enrichment settings. And what that'll do is provide a little bit more fuel to the engine during a high-low transition. In this case, I have the accelerator enrichment curve pretty steep, and I would probably try increasing the acceleration time to maybe 300 milliseconds and see how that goes. And it might be a combination of fiddling with both the time and the curve together, but for now we'll leave it. Hopefully that gives you an insight on some simple tuning and how easily problems can be solved with the data logger feature. Of course, we'll get into this a little bit more once we fully test the car. Let's watch the rest of the run. Okay, so here's another interesting anomaly that I didn't discover until I edited this video. So the green line, as you know, is the throttle position sensor, and of course it dips down when I take my foot off the accelerator to change gears. Well, when I get back on the accelerator, the throttle position doesn't go all the way back up. Now, most likely this is due to operator error, and I simply didn't push the accelerator hard enough. In any event, I need to keep an eye on the data log files and see if this is the sign of a failing throttle position sensor. Alright, well let's watch the rest. So before we move on, here's another interesting bit not necessarily related to the EFI, but the torque converter or CVT drive. This might be a little complex to explain if you're not familiar on how I built the drivetrain on this car. All the mechanical bits and how stuff works is explained starting in episode 11 and up, so I do recommend watching previous episodes if you need to get up to speed. Although the car's transmission is in third gear, the CVT is in theoretical first gear. As you may or may not know, a CVT, or continuous variable transmission, can automatically shift ratios during acceleration. So as this car accelerates, the CVT will stay in virtual first gear all the way up to this point. Then it starts to ratio shift a little bit past this screen. Now, the reason I use a CVT is so we can quickly and seamlessly multiply the engine torque by about 2.5 times. And this really helps to get the car moving. Now, some people love it and some people hate it, but for now we're keeping it. Anyway, I'm going to play this one more time without interruptions so you can focus on the CVT system. Alright, so one more thing before we move on. Let's take a look at the VE table during the drag race portion. So the VE table is the volumetric efficiency table, and it pretty much tells the ECU how much fuel to inject at any given moment. Now, this is a 12 by 12 table, and it looks like crap. I know, but here's the deal. This little engine operates at 100% almost all the time and uses very little of this table. So the majority of the table is just random numbers, and the part we're interested in is almost always up in this region. And that's because the car is pretty much driven at wide open throttle all the time. Occasionally during cruise, at about 50 miles an hour, this part of the table will get used. Now, keep in mind this is the first outing with the car, and with the data I gather, I can rescale and rewrite the VE table, as well as the ignition table. So think of this table as the first draft, and it contains just enough information to get the ECU to work. Let's see the drag race run played back on this table. Yeah, I definitely need to rewrite and rescale the table. Anyway, that's enough tech for now. Let's see how the car did on the rest of the Hillbilly Proving Grounds. Of course, in the Badlands, where top speed is our goal, well, we had some problems. Now, prior to the run through the Badlands, the car had been running perfectly. Anyway, during the high-speed run, the POV camera shut down, and of course we didn't know that at the time. But luckily, we had the dash cam going. Alright, well, let's just watch. So what happened was, the Arduino had some sort of event that scrambled the microprocessor. Fortunately, rebooting the Arduino got the car going again. So we had some problems. Now, before we continue, let's summarize the first outing with the Speeduino EFI system. The 0 to 30 time was about the same. However, we now have the tools to forensically analyze the run, and we can sort out any shortcomings with a high degree of accuracy. The 0 to 50, well, that's something new as of today. The 33.94 seconds is abysmal, but we can definitely shave some time off that. How much? I have no idea, but I'll take whatever I can get. The country road portion was basically the same as before. This part of the road test is done at part throttle with an occasional full throttle blip. I think any improvements here will definitely come from information we gathered in the Badlands. Boot Hill. Well, that hasn't really been a problem since we upgraded to the 420cc engine. As a matter of fact, every time I reach the summit, I have to let off on the accelerator to slow down a little bit. Now for the Badlands. Well, we had some bad luck on camera, but off camera with the hood on the car, we managed to get 64 miles per hour before the Arduino freaked out again. I truly think the firmware on the Arduino is corrupted, and that's an easy fix, but I need to take some measures to keep this from happening again. Fuel economy. Now, we haven't talked about that yet in today's video. Now, just a reminder, this project is focused on getting the car to go as fast as possible, and fuel economy is not our primary concern. However, we did manage to get a respectable 45 miles to the gallon today, and that's with the hood off. And I can definitely see room for improvement as far as the engine tune goes. You guys hear that? It must be time for...
Sprockets! Sprockets!
Sprockets!
Yeah, it's time for sprockets again. Way back in episode 17, we tried a few different sprockets, and the purpose of the sprockets is to change or modify the ratio between the torque converter and the input shaft of the Honda transmission. For instance, this big sprocket, it helps with the low-end performance, but it limits the top speed. Now this small sprocket over here, that'll hurt the low-end performance, but it'll help out with the top speed. As I recall from episode 17, the sprocket that delivered the best overall performance was this one. But it was never going to get us to our 70 mile per hour goal. So we went with this sprocket. And well, it ain't working for us. So let's try this one. The sprocket we're currently using gives us a decent top speed. But at 64 miles per hour, the engine's running outside its power band and the horsepower is on a downward slope. The idea is to swap this sprocket in and bring the engine back into its power band at 64 miles per hour. We might even pick up a little bit more speed, it's hard to say. But when we add the supercharger, I think the screen should shake when I say that. Let's try it again.
Supercharger!
That's better. Anyway, the smaller sprocket will definitely be a step in the right direction. Speaking about the
Supercharger!
I got a package the other day, and let's take a look at what I got. So this thing is a flywheel side PTO shaft for a Predator 420cc engine. And I guess its main purpose is to adopt a Predator to an older tractor or something like that. But we're going to use it to drive the Supercharger. Well, that's weird. The screen didn't shake. That was getting annoying. Anyway, as you can see, it fits on the front of the flywheel and it uses the flywheel nut to hold it in place. You know, I think we're going to get rid of this shaft thingy and mount the drive pulley directly to the hub. Let's see how this fits our spare engine. That looks like it's going to work perfect. Now, I just need to calculate the pulley size in order to generate 5 pounds of boost with this 300cc supercharger. I've seen a lot of formulas on how to calculate boost, but I come up with different results every time. Anybody out there know how to calculate the drive ratio? Any help would greatly be appreciated. Well, I need to get back to working on our street legal go-kart, so I think we're going to end it here today. So thanks for watching, and until next time.